For years, the world believed that Madeleine McCann would never be heard of again, until one unexpected detail changed everything. What she revealed shocked both investigators and her family. And the question that no one wants to silence: are we ready for the truth? In recent days, headlines and social media posts have reignited one of the greatest criminal mysteries of modern history: the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. Suddenly, new bombshell information started circulating. Some sources claim that she has been found, while others speak of a secret hidden for years. But what if all of this is nothing more than another smokescreen? Since 2007, this case has lived an endless cycle. A new lead appears, the world holds its breath, and in the end, nothing is confirmed. The truth always seems to slip through our fingers. The problem is that, with each new discovery, hopes, indignation, and of course, a lot of money generated by sensationalist headlines arise. But why now? What makes Madeleine McCann return to the news from time to time, as if her case could never be left behind? More importantly, who really profits from this avalanche of information, often without any foundation? If Madeleine were alive and reappeared, would the world be ready to hear her version of events? Or, as has happened with so many other stories, would the truth be suffocated by the weight of greater interests? Before answering these questions, we need to go back to the beginning and understand how this case took such gigantic proportions. When a crime remains unsolved for so long, it ceases to be merely a police case and becomes a social phenomenon. Madeleine McCann's disappearance stirred millions in investigations, campaigns, documentaries, and media coverage. But what few people realize is that, over the years, many have taken advantage of it. Have you ever imagined that, for some, keeping the mystery alive is more profitable than solving it? With each new supposed lead, the spotlight returns, magazines sell more, and social media explodes with heated debates. And at the center of it all is the McCann family, sometimes seen as victims, sometimes as suspects. But there is another detail that almost no one comments on. Madeleine was not the only child to disappear in such circumstances. Other similar cases have occurred, but why did only this one gain such absurd attention? Perhaps the answer lies not only in the mystery, but also in what it represents. Madeleine McCann has become a global symbol. But is the world really in search of the truth, or is it merely feeding an endless story? And now, with new rumors that she might have reappeared, one question remains: are we facing a real twist, or just another chapter in a mystery that never seems to end? Amid so many theories, assumptions, and wild headlines, a serious problem arises: misinformation. In recent years, several women have claimed to be Madeleine McCann. Some truly believed it, while others were seeking attention and fame. Some leads seemed promising, but they always ended up in the same place: nowhere. And meanwhile, Madeleine's true fate remains uncertain. Imagine the impact of this false information on the investigation. Police resources are diverted to follow leads that, in the end, prove to be empty. The family relives the pain repeatedly, and the public, increasingly numb, loses the ability to distinguish what is plausible from what is merely a media spectacle. The worst part is that this phenomenon is not limited only to Madeleine. Other famous disappearances suffer from the same problem. How many times have we heard that new leads might solve an old crime, only to discover that everything was just a wild goose chase? The lingering question is, are we really helping by sharing these unverified news reports? Or are we merely contributing to an endless cycle of misinformation? And if Madeleine McCann were indeed alive, would her voice be heard amid this chaos? Or would she just become another pawn in this great game of interests? In 2019, a woman named Julia Faustina went viral on social media by claiming she was Madeleine McCann. Photos were compared, interviews were given, and even a DNA test was considered. For days, the world stopped to follow this supposed twist, but the result was the same as always: she was not Madeleine. Cases like this repeat because, deep down, no one wants to accept silence as an answer. People need closure. But to what extent is this need for answers actually hindering the search for the true story? Because in the end, Madeleine remains a child who never grew up. So why does this case keep resurfacing? Who really benefits from perpetuating this mystery? In the next few minutes, we will analyze the false leads, the interest behind the headlines, and what we can really learn from the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. So, are you ready to question everything you thought you knew about this case? Families dining, children sleeping, the sound of the sea in the background. But then suddenly something happens. A strange silence fills the air. One of those moments when reality seems to change. That is exactly what happened on the night of May 3rd, 2007. at the Ocean Club Resort in Praia da Luz, Portugal. Kate and Jerry McCann, a middle to upper class British couple, were on vacation with their children and friends. As they did every night, they left Madeleine, only 3 years old, asleep in the apartment, and went to dinner just a few meters away. According to them, the group took turns checking on the children every half hour. Everything seemed under control until, at 10 p.m., Kate returned to the room and found something no one ever expects to see. Madeleine's bed was empty, the window was ajar, and there was no sign of their daughter. Panic was immediate. Kate's scream echoed throughout the resort. "They took her! They took my daughter!" What followed was absolute chaos. Guests and staff began desperately searching for Madeleine, but it was already too late. The little girl had simply vanished, as if she had evaporated. The Portuguese police were called, but the investigation began in a disorganized manner. The crime scene was contaminated, with dozens of people coming in and out of the apartment before any evidence could be collected. The media, as soon as they learned of the case, turned the story into a global spectacle. Reporters from around the world arrived in the small town, and in just a few days, Madeleine McCann became an internationally known name. But while the world watched everything on television, something strange was happening behind the scenes. The versions of what really happened that night began to contradict each other. Inconsistent testimonies, leads that led nowhere, parallel investigations. And amid all of this, a question began to arise. Was the police investigating the case the right way? As the days passed and Madeleine remained missing, the narrative started to change. Initially, the most accepted theory was that of a kidnapping. The idea that a pedophile or a child trafficking network had taken the little girl made sense, especially considering that the apartment door was unlocked. But then the first suspicions began to emerge that the crime might have a much more complex outcome. The Portuguese police began to focus on Madeleine's own parents. Yes, the same ones who were desperate to find their daughter. The reason? Small details began to attract attention. Kate and Jerry's behavior, for example, was considered strangely controlled by some investigators. In addition, sniffer dogs pointed to traces of blood and the odor of a corpse inside the rental car used by the family, a vehicle they only rented weeks after the disappearance. This was enough to turn the case into a true media tribunal. On one side were those who believed that the McCanns were victims of police error. On the other, those who were sure that they knew more than they were letting on. The result was a complete division of public opinion and a flood of conspiracy theories. Meanwhile, the investigation seemed increasingly lost. The Portuguese police had no concrete evidence against the parents, yet they could not find any other viable suspect. With no real progress, the case was shelved in 2008, but Madeleine McCann was never forgotten. And this is where the most intriguing phenomenon of this story comes in. Over the years, every few months, a new bombshell lead emerges. A witness claims to have seen the little girl in another country. A woman appears claiming to be Madeleine. A new technology promises to solve the mystery, but in the end, everything always comes back to square one. And now, once again, the story is resurfacing. But is there really something genuine behind it this time? Or are we just witnessing another cycle of false hopes? Imagine waking up one day to discover that the entire world believes you are someone who disappeared years ago. That is exactly what happened to several women over the years. People who, by coincidence or manipulation, had their faces compared to Madeleine's and became overnight news. Several supposed appearances of Madeleine have surfaced in different parts of the world. In 2011, a British girl was found in India, and it was even considered that she might be her. The same happened in 2013 in New Zealand, when a blonde child caught the attention of tourists. In both cases, DNA tests ruled out any connection. But the problem was not just the wrong leads, it was the impact they had on real investigations. Each new theory diverted attention from the true suspects. The situation became even more chaotic when some adult women began to claim Faustina, a Polish woman who went viral on the internet claiming to have vague childhood memories and physical similarities with Madeleine. Social media exploded with photo comparisons and theories ranging from child trafficking to government conspiracies. But in the end, a simple DNA test showed that she had no relation to the McCann family. These false leads created a problematic cycle. Each time a new Madeleine appeared, the story made headlines again, but the truth never advanced. What seemed like a promising lead quickly turned into yet another frustration. And this raises a concerning question. Are we so obsessed with finding an ending for this case that we end up believing any new theory that emerges? The Madeleine McCann case is not just a police mystery, It has become an unprecedented media spectacle. From the very beginning, the press exploited every detail of the disappearance, turning assumptions into headlines and theories into almost certainties. The problem? Many of these reports fueled a network of misinformation that remains strong to this day. Sensationalist media saw the case as a golden opportunity. Headlines like "Madeleine spotted in Morocco" or "New witness claims to have seen Madeleine alive" appeared almost weekly. It didn't matter if the information was verified. The important thing was to generate audience. This created a phenomenon where anyone remotely resembling Madeleine became news. But the problem didn't stop there. Social media amplified this effect. Instead of a newspaper publishing a theory and days later debunking it, now any user can spread rumors instantly, and these rumors multiply even before they are checked. In the case of Julia Faustina, for example, TikTok and Instagram profiles shared her posts without any evidence. And in just a few days, millions of people were convinced that she was Madeleine. When the DNA test proved it was a lie, the truth didn't receive even half the repercussion of the initial theory. And the impact of this goes far beyond public curiosity. Each new false lead consumes police resources, hinders legitimate investigations, and prolongs the McCann family's suffering. Moreover, innocent people end up being exposed and even threatened simply for resembling Madeleine. The lingering question is, to what extent has the search for truth turned into a spectacle driven by clicks and likes? And this brings us to an even more alarming point. Has all this smokescreen created over the years merely served to divert our attention from what really happened that night in 2007? What might the truth be hiding? With each new theory, the hope for a resolution to Madeleine McCann's case resurfaces. But what happens when that hope is built on rumors and speculation? The cycle of false information not only hinders the real investigation, but also emotionally affects those involved. Imagine being one of Madeleine's parents and every few months receiving news that your daughter has been found. Each new bombshell revelation generates expectation, only to be dashed shortly after. This emotional roller coaster is not only cruel, but it also distracts investigators from following truly promising leads. And it's not just the family that suffers. Innocent people have been exposed to ridicule or even persecuted due to unfounded rumors. Women who physically resembled Madeleine have been harassed on social media, receiving threats and hateful messages from those who blindly believed in the viral theories. But why does this happen? The answer lies in the way information is consumed today. The public wants twists, quick answers, and the media, both traditional and digital, is ready to deliver that, even without concrete proof. And here comes the big question. If Madeleine were to reappear, would the world accept her version of the story? Or would the narrative built over the years create new doubts, new suspicions, and more speculation? That is the real problem. When a story becomes bigger than the facts, the truth runs the risk of being rejected. And this leads us to an even darker point. Are these false pieces of information actually helping to hide what really happened? If Madeleine could tell her own version of events, what would she say? What would she reveal about the night of May 3rd, 2007? The answer might be more frightening than any internet theory. From the beginning, the Madeleine McCann case was marked by an investigation full of flaws, changing accounts, and unprecedented media involvement. This means that if one day the truth emerges, it might not be as simple as a straightforward explanation. The rumors and speculations over the years have created a web of misinformation so dense that any new information will be questioned. If someone appears claiming to be Madeleine, the skeptics will say it's a fraud. If a new lead emerges, there will be those who say it's associated with international kidnappings, child trafficking, powerful networks, and even government cover-ups. Each theory added a layer of complexity to a mystery that perhaps was simpler in the beginning. But after so many years, the truth may have been buried under layer upon layer of fabricated versions. And that is the great danger. When the truth finally comes out, if it ever does, will the world accept it? Or will people prefer to continue believing in the mystery, the conspiracy, in the most absurd theory? After all, sometimes the truth isn't as interesting as the illusion we build around it. And this brings us to the final reflection. Has Madeleine McCann's story become a real case to be solved, or just a plot that will never end because the world prefers it that way? If one day Madeleine McCann truly reappeared, would the world accept her version of events? Or would the theories built over the years speak louder than the truth itself? The Madeleine case is not just a police mystery, it has become a media phenomenon, an enigma shaped by the press, by conspiracy theories, and by the public's desire to always seek an answer, even if it doesn't exist. When a story is repeated so many times, in so many different ways, the truth gets lost among the versions. If Madeleine were to return today and tell what really happened, part of the public would believe her immediately, but many others would question, doubt, point out inconsistencies, and create new narratives to fit the truth into what they already believe. After all, when a story becomes too big, it's never just about the facts. It's about what people want it to be, and that is the greatest danger of misinformation. The McCann case teaches us how the media can create villains and heroes, how theories can seem more seductive than reality, and how, in the end, we do not always want the truth. We just want a story that makes sense to us. But the truth, more often than not, is not a grand spectacle. It does not have cinematic twists or bombshell revelations. And maybe that's why many choose to ignore it. The Madeleine case is a warning about the power of information and misinformation. It shows how rumors can grow to gigantic proportions and even hinder investigations. How headlines can turn suspects into the guilty before any concrete evidence is presented. How the desire for answers can lead to the acceptance of any theory, as long as it seems convincing. The question is not just whether Madeleine is alive or not. The real question is, are we ready to accept the facts when they emerge? Or will we continue seeking alternative versions because the truth, deep down, will never be enough? And now, I want to know your opinion. Why do you think this case still generates so many speculations? Do you believe that one day we will know what really happened? Leave your comment down below and tell me. Do you think the truth can still come out? And if you like mysteries like this, you need to watch this next video, where we talk about another case that shocked the world. Click here and continue this investigation with me. Subscribe so you don't miss the next content and turn on notifications because there is a lot coming. And if you made it to the end, comment, "Sure, I want the truth," so I know you followed along until here.